well, back up a little bit further, I didn't just decide to go out and get arrested at a nuclear power plant site to accommodate Monty Throdol. I had been a left Democrat for a long, long time, and eventually decided that they were not really doing enough stuff, so I went to join Dr. Ben Spock's People's Party in 1978, 76 actually, 1976 it was. It was even earlier than that, but it's actually 74. So anyway, I was way off on the left end of the spectrum, and eventually we got tired of doing electoral politics in St. Louis County. Going door to door doing petitions to get people on the ballot was a tough row to hoe, let me tell you that. I did a lot of that. So eventually we decided not to stay in electoral politics, and we got into environmental things. And then 3 Mile Island comes along in 1979. And then there's development of, they were going to build 2 nuclear power plants upwind and upstream from St. Louis in Galloway County. And so I got involved in all that stuff as part of our, we changed from being the St. Louis Area Peace and Freedom Party to Crawdad Alliance. So I got involved in all this anti-nuclear stuff, and so that was just a natural thing. When I went into my boss one day when I was doing this environmental management stuff, and he said, I handed him this memo which said, I may have to go to jail here for a little while. He said, Jesus, man. He said, you know what this will do to your career? And I said, well,
do you know what this will do to your life? I mean, you know what nuclear...
Well, that's cool, because once I realized I was going to get this job at EPA, I wrote a letter to what's called the Technical Community of Monsanto newsletter. They had like an internal professional society for the scientists at Monsanto. So I wrote this sort of adios valedictory letter to the technical community about nuclear power. And how it, violated informed consent and the various dangers of radiation and all that kind of stuff. And I sent that in December of 1980. Ronald Reagan is elected in November of 1980. To keep that in mind. So that was in the TCM newsletter in December. In January, you may not know this, but the Voyager spacecraft that's out flying now beyond the solar system is powered by a plutonium reactor made by Monsanto Nuclear.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. So January, the letters start coming in from my Monsanto colleagues over at Dayton, where the nuclear stuff is. And they called me everything but a nice guy.
Yeah.
But, I said, I don't really care about this, And January 12th, I got a letter from EPA saying, we're offering you this job as a GS-15, and give you a PD. And it was pretty impressive. So I went in to my boss and said, I'm going to be leaving in 2 weeks or a month. I forget what it was. And I said, no, okay. And the January 20th comes along, and Ronald Reagan is sworn in as president. January 21, Ronald Reagan rescinds all the job offers in the previous 30 days.
Wow.
So there I am. I went back to my second-level boss who had saved my bacon inside Monsanto, because I was kind of a wild man the whole time. He said, don't worry, Bill. Just go back to the bench and just do your job. You don't have to worry about anything. Just keep on trying. So then February, more letters from the nuclear guys. Then March, another batch. And I said, okay, this is enough. So then I wrote another letter, laying out what I did on this environmental management plan,
right,
and how I really saved the company's bacon on this, doing this kind of stuff. And I was doing the job that Monty Throdol asked me to do, and I did it. And because of my involvement with nuclear stuff, I found myself kicked out of the environmental management arm, and I'm back at the research bench. And I gave that to the editor of the newsletter. So the next day, we meet in the hall. He says, Monty Throdol is very interested in that letter. And I said, I'll bet he is. And I went back and sat down in the lab, and I thought, well, that ain't going to do me any good. So I sat down and wrote another letter to Throdol. And I said, Monty, thanks very much for the opportunity to do this. I learned a lot. I had a great time doing it. very proud to be part of Monsanto and doing this kind of work. And I thought this was really the right thing to do, and I thought I was carrying out your orders in everything, including I was trying to build bridges with environmental organizations during that same period, because they all knew that I was working for Monsanto, but the only time I ever said any other time that I was with Monsanto was when I was testifying before the Missouri State Legislature on a citizens initiative. We were aiming to kill the nuclear power plant before it started, but we had a citizens initiative that said no power plant could be built unless there is a decommissioning plan in place beforehand. And no nukes are ever built with a decommissioning plan in the first place. We almost won. We lost 52 to 48 in that election. We were outspent $50,000 to some couple million from the Union Electric Company. Anyway, that's the only time I ever identified myself as a Monsanto person, except earlier on, way back in the early 70s, when the musical Hair came out. Yeah? When I saw that for the first time, it knocked my socks off. I was in Boston for Monsanto business, and I got like third row center seats. And the lights go down, and boom, man, it comes on, and they're coming down the aisles. Let me tell you. So, back in St. Louis, this alderwoman, Doris Bass, puts a bill in front of the Board of Aldermen saying no nude performances will be allowed in St. Louis. So this is much earlier. This is, like 1972 or something. And I had been part of a recruiting effort for Monsanto back in the days when jobs were plentiful and we had to compete for people to come and work for us. So I was in my laboratory tinkering away. I was at the radio line. So, well, today there are hearings at the Board of Aldermen on Doris Bass's measure. The hearing is being held in City Hall. So I think, man, I'm going to go up there and tell them what I think about that. So I went in and I said, I want to testify. I said, okay, so they got up there. I said, look, I'm not here as a representative of my company. I work for Monsanto, but I'm not
represent
here.
Yourself.
I'm representing my own point of view on this thing. But I'm part of the recruiting effort. We're trying to bring top drawer scientists into St. Louis. We're trying to increase the cultural milieu of this place.
Yeah.
And we come with a cockamamie law like that, that inhibits our ability to attract good people. So I go home, turn on the 10 o'clock news. A recruiter for Monsanto today testified before the meeting.
Of course. They latched onto that.
Sweet Jesus. Yeah, exactly so. So the next morning, my second level boss, this guy I told you I would go to the gates of hell. He's no longer alive, but he called me down to the office. He said, Bill, the higher-ups agree with everything that you said, but you cannot go on television and do that. You can't identify yourself as being from even though it's whatever. So don't do this again.
Yeah.
He said, you bet. I got the message. So I never did that. But then I got called to testify before this Missouri State Legislature I had drafted the technical part about the licensing. The original thing was just ban nuclear power in the state. I said, that will never fly.
Right.
The courts have decided that's not going to fly. So anyway, there was a hearing in the Missouri House of Representatives. They said, Dr. Hirzy, I told him, I have experience as an environmental scientist. He said, well, where do you work as an environmental scientist? Well, I really can't say that because I'm not involved in this. It's totally outside of my work environment. Doctor, we need to know where you work, Dr. Hirzy. We need to understand your credentials. No, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Said, if you don't answer this, we're going to hold you in contempt. And
you're screwed either way.
Yeah, so I said, well, I work for Monsanto. So that was the only other time. And so I don't know how much that played into the effect, or just the fact that I was doing this other stuff. So I'm working away, and I write this other letter to Monty Throdo. I put it on his desk. Now, when there's a change of administration in Washington, there's what they're called transition teams. Every agency has people from the new administration who come in and sit next to the current administrator types to understand what the programs are, how it's going, and build a new organization. Guess who the head of the transition team for EPA was? Monty Throdall. I had laid this thing on his desk at 10 o'clock at noon. I got a call. Dr. Hirzy, hey, this is so-and-so from the EPA. Office of Management and Budget has cleared your job appointment. When can you come to work for us?
Wow.
So I said, well, this was the middle of April. I said, how about May Day? And he laughed and said, well, May Day is on Saturday. How about the 3rd? And I said, close enough.
So that's when you made the transition fully
That's
to
why
the EPA.
I went to EPA.
And now you're no longer at the EPA. You work for Fluoride Action Network, right?
Yeah.
Did you do that full time?
Well, I taught as an adjunct for 17 years while I was in St. Louis. I taught chemistry at various places in St. Louis. Then when I came up to D.C., I started doing adjunct work at American University in 1995, and I did that. I went on detail full-time to AU for about 4 years. Meanwhile, I'm working for EPA, and by 2008, I was done at EPA. I was done, and so I retired from EPA and was hired full-time faculty for American University. I resigned from that job after 5 years last year. So now I'm the Washington representative for FAM, and it sure as hell has been a full-time job for the last couple of months. I'll tell you that. Working on this, working on writing this paper that Paul kind of referred to, and Chris Neurath and I have been knocking heads on some of the technical aspects of it. I think we're finally there. So for the last 6 months, it's been basically a full-time job at $1,000 a month.
Yeah. Do you think that we're going to be
able? A whole lot less than I ever made anyplace else.
Do you think that we're going to be able to unglue the fluoridation policy here in America? And what's your timeline for that?
Well, here's the tentative timeline at this point: is we get this paper concluded between Chris and Paul and Michael and my former colleague Bob Carton, and get it out for publication. Hopefully we get it published in a good journal, like Environmental Health Perspectives. Then we file an application with EPA under Section 21 of the Toxics Laws, the Citizens Petition section of the law, that allows any citizen to petition the administrator to act under any of the statutes that he has authority under, to act to enforce some aspect of that law. And we're going to ask him to set the maximum contaminant level goal for fluoride at 0, based on what you're going to hear from me in a little while. And it's probably less than 1% probability they would say, "Oh yeah, Jesus, how could we not have seen that?"
Right.
That's probably not going to happen. So we're also going to hear this afternoon from one of the lawyers we have lined up to sue EPA, because the section says if the administrator fails to act within 180 days or denies the petition, then petitioner can seek redress in a federal district court for a trial de novo, and then we're prepared to do that.
Wow.
And we're going to lay all that out Monday when we talk to the assistant administrator for water. So we are prepared to come after you guys.
So you think
just be aware.
Yeah, well, do you think that'll all kind of take place this year, or that'll go into next year?
It'll probably trickle over into next year, I think, because if we get this darn paper in final form, hopefully next week, submitted to a journal, we should know pretty quick whether they're going to do it, and if they do, then publication. We'll have some sense of when the publication date is going to be, and we'll check with the editor of that journal if we could file this petition, if that would jeopardize the publication at all. And if it doesn't, then we would go ahead and file as soon as we know that it's going to be published. And then the clock starts ticking, and that's because it's half a year. So
we'll just be sitting around watching the watch.
Yeah.
So what are your conclusions with nuclear energy?
Well, I didn't think much about climate change back in those days, and I still don't think nuclear energy is the total answer. There might be some validity in short term with some of the smaller type nukes, but these $10 billion jobs, I don't think that's the answer at all, because it's way too much capital to invest in a single source of power, when that kind of capital could be invested in other wind and solar. Solar, I think, is the answer. The ultimate answer is solar. And this is all coming down free of charge.
Right.
All we have to do is capture it.
Right.
That's all we have to do.
So that leads me to my next one. Why all this almost like anti-life science going on? Why do you think this is all happening?
Well, I'm reading Michio Kaku's book right now, The Future of the Mind. I don't know if you know Michio.
I'm familiar with
Michio Kaku. When we got arrested at the nuclear power plant site, by the way, Michio Kaku came out and was our expert witness to testify on our behalf. He was his hair was a lot blacker then.
Yeah.
This is the summer of 1980.
Wow.
When I saw him recently, had him sign that book, I said, Dr. Kaku, do you remember coming out to Fulton, Missouri and testifying on behalf of some people? And he said, yeah, I remember that. So anyway, but I don't know. The human mind is such a strange thing. In advanced societies, we've seemed to have lost contact with nature
and humanity.
It's a tragic loss. And I hate to be one of those kind of guys that, well, our society's so stupid now because we've been having fluoride for so long. But
it's hard to deny.
It's hard to deny that the toxics that we're exposed to
are preventing us from understanding how they're affecting our body.
That's exactly right. That there are some decrements in our prefrontal cortex operations that
it's disabling.
I'm not
people.
saying fluoride is the whole problem here.
No, but it's a big part of it.
Or the pesticides are the whole problem, or
it's
microwaves are the problem.
It's a complex mixture of all of the above.
All of the above, and so there's the cognitive dissonance, in other words, is part of the reason why there's so much of this nasty stuff going on right now. Is cognitive dissonance,
and that enables people with ill will to kind of take control and dominate over the ones who can't really come to any solid conclusion about it.
Are they too busy watching reality TV? Dancing with the Stars. Voice. What's America Has Talent.
Right. All the distractions play into it as well.
Goofy distractions.
So that raises the question: is there any engineering that's involved here? Is there any intentional design to
I don't go there. It's hard to imagine that there. For me, it's hard to imagine that there is. But the simple fact is that all of these things we are going on. These things are going on.
They're happening.
Yeah, they're happening. And for whatever the reason is. Now, I think within the fluoride area, there is some of this stuff when the carcinogenicity results were published in 1990. It first came out the National Toxicology Program, Cancer Bioassay on sodium fluoride came out that said sodium fluoride is there's clear evidence of carcinogenicity. Clear evidence of carcinogenicity.
And they presented it at the Research Triangle Park, didn't they?
That's right. I was shortly thereafter. I was at some conference over at the National Academy of Sciences, and the National Academy. If you're at the stage, there's a bunch of seats back here, and then there's a bunch of seats up in front of the stage, and there's an aisle right there. And I was sitting in a corner chair right on this back section of the seats. And there were two guys that came up. And you can believe this or not, but this happened. Two guys came up, and I don't remember the exact words that were said, but it was something to the effect of, "Hey man, did you hear about this bioassay on fluoride?" And the other guy said, "Don't worry, it's taken care of. Don't worry about it, it's taken care of." So
we have opponents. We know that. I've testified or presented my case against fluoride at my local council, and there have been people that come out of the woodwork from the dental community or the medical professional, and I've heard them say, "Are you ready to do battle?" I mean, they're talking to their colleagues, and they're doing battle against us with their preconceived notions of what's right and what's
the ADA says, if you're not an overt advocate for fluoridation, you are derelict in your professional duty, and so they have that sense. I have the same sense on our side. We are now engaged big time with them. There's a letter that went out day before yesterday from ADA to Congress, and I'm going to be talking about that in my risk assessment when I show it to you. And then also a bulletin from the ADA to their members saying, get in touch with Congress. Because there's this group of activists that intend to basically destroy our fluoridation program, claiming that
they're the victims.
Yeah, they're the victims. Yeah. So we are engaged.
The children. What about the children's teeth?
We are doing battle.
Absolutely.
I just said, I wrote to my co-organizers here, and I said, comrades, we are engaged.
It is an info war, isn't it?
It is a battle. Absolutely, it's a war.